Alright, so this is the kids' bigger Suzuki quad runner. This is a 300. I think it's a 87, and it's got some valve tick. So 8mm hex takes the inspection cap off, or whatever you want to call this. It's a plug in reality. There's an arrow, and then there's a T right there. So I've got it pretty close. Hopefully you can see that line. Might be slightly over. Probably close enough. And then you take the air box off there and there and there and there and up here. Take the speedo off, and the plastic is loose. And then you've got this tarp rubber for splashing, and then you can get to this top intake valve. So I'm just about ready to do it. So then if you turn the airbox crooked, you don't have to take off all the plastic, all the racks, all that plastic. And you can see there's the valve cover right there. So I'll pop that off and then get a set of feeler gauges out. So I was expecting to find one valve, and you can clearly see there's two there. So a little bit different than I expected. Okay, the only way you can get to the exhaust one that I'm aware of, which is up in here, is you gotta take the front fender off and the front rack. And then of course the seat is still off. But we put the airbox back together after setting these. And I tried to look them up, and anything comparable was around 3,000 to 5,000, so we set them to 4. This side was way out, it had to be 12 plus, and that side was pretty darn close to 4. So we'll see, somebody's got some RVT in here. That's always a promising sign. So anyways, we'll pop these open and check them with the feeler gauges. Okay, so these valves are out of adjustment. That's got to be close to 1/16 of an inch, and that one's probably more. So I believe the exhausts are somewhere around 8, or that's probably what they're going to get set to. Everything, again, I look up. I can't find a 300. I can find a 250, and the 250 was 3,000 to 5,000 on the intake, and I think it's 5 to 8 on the exhaust. So want to use the larger numbers so that when it thermally grows, because you do these little engines when they're cold, because you'd burn your hands when you did them when they're hot. But you kind of use the larger number. It sounds counterproductive because you think you'd have to adjust it more frequent, but you use the larger number, or closer to the larger number, so that it allows for some thermal expansion once the engine's running. Okay, so we actually ended up using 7,000 because the exhaust, they're both pretty decent. So I thought there's a lot of movement in there, but there's not. So you take the 7 out, and you put it back in, and there's no movement, and then you take it out, and you have a little bit of movement. So I think we'll leave them at 7. So this one wasn't too bad, and then that one was really bad. So hopefully the valve tick is that. If not, I'm wondering if it's this cam timing chain auto tensioner. The chain might be. The chain comes up off the crank to the overhead cam, and this is the tensioner. And maybe the spring's broke inside, or it's just at maximum travel. So I'll put this bike back together, and then I'll see what it sounds like. If the valve tick's largely gone, probably I'm not going to play with it, even if there's just a small one left. If the valve tick is still there, as bad as what I thought it was, I'll probably have to either check the tensioner, because it's just these two bolts, or take the head off and start looking in the head. And maybe the valve seats, maybe the valves, maybe the lifter where it rides on the lobe of the cam, maybe it's the cam. I don't know. This rubber inspection cap I almost think might show where the cam is, but there should be a couple grooves on the sprocket, and it has to be parallel with the head here. So we'll check all that anyways. Maybe it's the bike's in time, so I don't think it skipped a tooth or anything, but maybe it's something obvious.